Hi, all, and welcome to.
Tell me an old captain story.
Before we begin, I want to give a quick shout out to Simon, who is the inspiration for these stories and the person for whom they were originally told. Also, a shout out to his little brother Miles, who is a big part of these stories today. Love you guys. Episode 2: Old Captain and the Albatross King. The Troll King's island was a dot in the distance when the sails of the whimsy wayfarer hung flat and deflated of any wind. The sea was silent and still, and the men aboard were restless, eager to return home. Old Captain sat in his quarters at his map table, sweating profusely as he tried to chart a course. He was not alone. The caged bird was in his quarters, eyeing him closely. Old Captain drew a line from where they were to a point on the map not far from another island. "I wouldn't go that way if I were you," said a voice. Old Captain looked up sharply and eyed the albatross, but it seemed to be pruning its feathers. "Who said that?" There was silence. He went back to his map. "Let's see, we should be here," Old Captain said to himself, pointing at a dot he'd made with his pencil. "You're lost," the voice said again. This time Old Captain looked up and found the bird looking directly at him. "So you talk," Old Captain said. "Of course I talk," the bird replied, "for you're right, I am a king." "Pleased to meet you, your highness," Old Captain tipped his hat. "Do you have another name?" "Not one that your human lips could speak," said the Albatross King. "Fair enough." Old Captain put his pencil down. "So I assume you know these waters around here, then. Are you going to help me get back home, or no?" "Where's home?" "A little town called Octopi," Old Captain said. "Never heard of it." "It's on Inkley Isle." The Albatross shook his regal head. Old Captain realized just then that the Albatross King was still in the gibbet cage. "My apologies, friend," Old Captain said, and got up from his table to unlock the cage. "There you are. Can I get you some fish?" "Fish would be great, thank you," the Albatross King replied. "And thank you for rescuing me from that terrible troll island." "My pleasure. How did you get there, anyway?" "Wouldn't think a troll could catch a fine bird as yourself." "Oh, I was not captured by the trolls. I wound up there because the pirate who caught me wrecked on that island." "Ah, I see. And where is the pirate now?" "At the bottom of the Troll King's belly." "Ah, naturally." Old Captain nodded. The Albatross King climbed out of the now unlocked cage and spread his wings, flapping them and filling the cabin with flutter and loose feathers. "I don't suppose you'd know when we might get some wind for our sails again, would you?" Old Captain asked. "I might be able to help with that," the Albatross King said. "But first, some more fish, please, and perhaps we can share some stories while I regain my strength and stretch out my wings. That cage was awful cramped, you know." Old Captain had another bucket of fish brought to his new friend, and a plate of roasted chicken for himself, and the two sat and shared stories. The Albatross King told him how he'd been flying for 2 years without landing when he'd made the mistake of flying too low and was caught in a giant net made by pirates. He'd tried to get away, but only flew straight into the sail of the pirate ship. Dazed and stunned due to the impact, he was taken and bound. "They thought I commanded the wind," the Albatross King said. "They were raiders, and they thought I would make their ship fast enough to give them an advantage over other ships." Old Captain said as he picked up a drumstick. Suddenly he wondered if this would offend the Feathered King. "My apologies," he said, and shrugged. "No offense meant. I just don't like the taste of fish." "None taken," the Albatross King said, and gulped down another fish whole. "So do you?" Old Captain asked. "Do I what?" "Control the wind." The Albatross King's eyes narrowed a little, looking suspicious. "No, that is a myth." "Oh, not to worry, friend," Old Captain tried to reassure him. "I'm not in the business of taking prisoners. All who serve aboard this ship do so freely." "I do not master the wind," the Albatross King said. "I am a servant of the wind, for I love her and always have. She keeps me aloft." Ah, you're a poet then, old Captain said. I seem to have met the only poet in the world with feathers. I'm hardly the only poet with feathers. Come again? You've never heard of Frank the Flamingo? No. Penelope the Parrot out of Santa Fe? No. What about Carlo the Crane, Henrietta the Hawk, Larry the Lark, or Pierce the Pigeon Poet of Central Park? A pigeon? Old Captain started, but was interrupted when the Albatross King placed a wing over his head and began reciting poetry in the most dramatic fashion. Oh, I am but a crumb on a cloudy day, waiting for that beautiful magpie Margaret to look my way, and light upon me with a smile and brighten the sky with her brilliant gaze. The Albatross King bowed. Ha! Old Captain clapped. Bravo! Bravo! He's very good, the great bird said. He performed at all the finest venues. I saw him at the Bowery Poetry Club in Manhattan. I don't know what to say. Old Captain had a befuddled look on his face. Wait a minute. Didn't you say your name was too hard for me to pronounce? Then why do these other birds have regular names? Ah, you caught me, the Albatross King said. I was just trying to be mysterious. It's been a long time since I met anyone I could talk to. The Albatross King gave a sort of bow. My name is Alabaster. Alabaster the Albatross. Old Captain smiled and stood up, taking his hat off and putting it over his heart. I am most pleased to meet you, Alabaster, he said. Can I call you Al? Again the bird's eyes narrowed. I'd prefer not. Very well, then. Old Captain stood straight again and put back on his hat. Alabaster it is. His voice trailed off as something caught his attention out the porthole. He saw that the sails were still hanging still and windless, but there were other sails on the horizon. Black sails. Pirates, he thought. Well, old Captain said and turned back to his guest, we still have the problem of having no wind. He drummed his fingers on the table nervously. Any suggestions? I don't know, the Albatross King said as he picked out another fish. I suppose you can't eat your way out of this one, eh? No, I guess nah. Old Captain shook his head, then his eyes widened slowly. He ran his tongue over his gums and realized that the golden tooth was still there. I never took it out. He looked around. Oh no, I ate so many hamburgers and I completely forgot it was still there. He recalled the blue-eyed harpy he'd gotten the tooth from and what she had said about its magic.
You must always take it out after you've used it. It would not be good to leave it in, for the tooth's magic may ask a price of the one who wears it.
Oh no, old Captain thought. He wondered what would happen. Would he be gassy? Would he have to poop? Would he throw up? He didn't like any of those, but the last two would be the worst. He closed his eyes. Oh, here goes nothing. Not wanting to risk any further danger, he took the golden tooth out of his mouth and froze. He waited for the worst, but nothing happened. The Albatross King sat very still, then cocked his head. Well? That was easy. Old Captain shrugged and was about to place the golden tooth back in the amulet around his neck where he kept it, when he felt a great rumble in his belly. Uh-oh, he said, and his eyes went wide. Are you all right? Alabaster asked. Old Captain put a hand to his mouth. The rumbling got bigger and bigger, louder and louder. He jumped up from his chair and ran to the cabin door. Old Captain ran out onto the deck and opened his mouth for what he was not sure would happen. The crew of the Whimsy Wayfarer and the Albatross King all watched in disbelief as Old Captain let out the loudest, the longest, biggest, most unbelievable for sure, gonna make your mom cringe. It was so loud that people heard the burp all the way around the world. And in fact, old Captain's mother, who'd been sitting at home thousands of miles away, watching the news, heard it, and when she did, she knew it was her son's burp, and just shook her head. If old Captain had been at the dinner table, he would definitely be sent to bed without dessert. It was the loudest and longest burp in recorded history. Seagulls fell out of the sky. Even fish, dolphins, and sharks in the sea stopped to look at old Captain as his burp filled each and every sail on the ship. It was so strong that the wind from it made the whole ship lurch forward as if propelled by a tornado. The ship traveled nearly a full 100 miles. It took old Captain nearly a full hour to finish the burp. which did not lose any of its volume or power for the longest time. When it was done, old Captain collapsed to his knees and uttered a very faint, "Excuse me," and fell unconscious. When he opened his eyes again, he was being doused by a very unexpected bucket of cold water. Cap, 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 sir, wake up! It was Hiccup Harold, the ship's boatswain, who was slapping old Captain's cheeks to get his attention. Hiccup Harold's job was to keep the ship in good running order, and he was also known to be the biggest gossip. "What's going on?" Old Captain sat up and shook himself off, flinging water everywhere. "Is it the pirates again? Are we under attack?" We're, we're worse," Hiccup Harold said. "What then?" Hiccup Harold helped the old cavalier to his feet and simply pointed toward the stern off to the starboard bow. There old Captain saw it, and his eyes went wide as his heart sank. Whirlpool! Old Captain surveyed the deck. He was proud to see that his men were all acting and moving to keep the ship from being caught in the grip of the massive whirlpool, which seemed to be large enough at the center to swallow all of them whole. The crew was frantically pulling on lines and trying to adjust the sails to get enough wind to change direction. Old Captain realized then that his unbelievable burp had sent them straight into the mouth of what the Greeks called the feared Charybdis, a creature who swallowed ships and their crews, never to be seen again. The crew struggled to right the ship. Old Captain went to the bridge to steer it away from the massive whirlpool, but it was too late. The ship was already caught in its deadly orbit. Old Captain wished he had saved the ginormous burp for now. Clouds gathered overhead, and a gust of wind seemed to be pushing them towards the whirlpool. Old Captain held on to the wheel with all his might. But just then, he heard the most profound call from a bird he's ever heard. It was like a lion mixed with an eagle, it was so loud. He looked back and saw the door to his cabin flung open and knocked off its hinges. There in the doorway, standing on two big, webbed feet, was Alabaster the Albatross King, in all his glory. A golden crown of feathers glowed bright on his head, and his plumage was brilliant white and black. He gave another triumphant call, and with a great thrust of his massive wings, burst into the air. "Wow, now that's an entrance," old Captain said. He watched in amazement as the Albatross King, with only a few flaps of his mighty wings, flew at such a speed as to become a blur that circled the whimsy wayfarer. Everything on the ship became suddenly still, and the pull from the whirlpool stopped. The crew and the captain looked overboard to see the ship rising from the sea itself and into the air. "What the heck?" old Captain said. "Ha ha!" The deck erupted with cheers from the crew as Alabaster, now a black, white, and yellow blur, surrounding the ship, seemed to direct it far and away from the danger of the gigantic whirlpool. It only lasted for a few moments, but seemed like an hour had gone by when old Captain's ship was placed gently back in the water of the great sea. Up ahead was the familiar shore of Inkley Isle, and again the crew cheered. Alabaster landed on the crow's nest of the main mast and nodded to old Captain. He looked normal again, his tuft of feathers on his head a light yellow, slightly resembling a crown, but nothing like the brilliant one old Captain saw moments before. "I thought you didn't control the wind," old Captain said. "I don't," the winged majesty replied. "I'm married to it." The Albatross King jumped into the air, and with a flap of his great wings was soaring high again. Old Captain took off his hat to watch the bird leave, and thought he could see it look down on him and smile, if birds could even do that. "Thank you, friend," old Captain called, and a glorious caw was his reply. Old Captain looked around, and was pleased to see everyone on his ship was okay. He shook his head and walked to the stern. "Married to the wind, eh?" he said to himself and scratched his chin. "I bet that's a story." And that's all for now. See you next time on
Tell me an old captain story.